What's up YouTube? My name is Lucky and this is Automotive Life. And today's video is all about 5 reasons why you should not flip exotic cars. Now this video idea came from a few people on my YouTube and my Instagram page asking me this question. Now if you guys watch my channel, you know most of my videos are doing affordable cars, $2,000 to $3,000 vehicles that you and pretty much 90% of America can flip on their own. When it comes to exotic cars, it's a lot more knowledge based, capital intensive, and just a bunch of other things. So I wanted to make a quick video just to kind of go over a few of these things so this way you guys get a little bit better understanding. But before I do, one shameless plug, 92% of you guys watching this video right now are not subscribed, which is bad juju. So please hit the subscribe button. Also, if you could smash that like button, I truly appreciate it. Hopefully the YouTube algorithm rewards us with amazing people just like you to watch more of our videos. So without further shameless plugging, let's get into the video. The first reason why not to start flipping exotic cars is knowledge. Knowledge is probably the most important thing you're going to need to learn before you even spend $1 in this industry. So I'm going to give you a few examples and then I'm going to tell you a few stories afterwards. So a big thing with knowing the knowledge of what the different options and features and trim levels mean in a particular type of vehicle. This can be the difference between a $30,000 profit and a $50,000 loser. You also, let's say if you buy a classic car, it's a 1965 Mustang, and there's a K in the VIN number. What does that mean? Another thing you need to learn and have the knowledge about is there's some cars that they no longer make parts for, or they still do. You need to know the options on each model, each particular type of car. You know, these are some of the things you're going to learn through years of experience. So it's very hard to just jump out there and start flipping exotic cars. So the first story we're going to get into is a friend of mine that bought a Rolls-Royce Wraith. Now, if you know anything about Rolls-Royce, obviously they're very expensive. If you buy a brand new one, and let's say you buy a brand new Wraith, it could cost you $300,000, but you can go over $200,000 in options above the original retail price. So there's so many options in a Rolls-Royce, it's ridiculous. And I think the Cullinan, it even goes up to, I think, $300,000. You can buy a diamond encrusted clock that's in the dash, and it also has a fridge with pop-out seats to chill your champagne, and you can sit on the back of your SUV while you're watching in a picnic or something like that. So a lot of these Rolls-Royce have amazing options, but you need to know what the value is, what the difference is, and which different trim levels mean. Because in these particular type of buyers, they're very discerning. They want to make sure that they get exactly what they want, how they want, and different options make the car way more valuable. So my friend picked up a 2015 Rolls-Royce Wraith here in Vegas. It was a rental car. It had about 50,000 miles. He paid about $200,000 for it. Now, last year, these things were going between about $225,000 to maybe $300,000 on Auto Trader, Craigslist, Car Gurus, and eBay. So he figured, you know, worst case scenario, he'd be around $230,000. So he posted it up online and wasn't getting any calls. Called me to ask me what my opinion was. So first thing we checked, his car had no options. So automatically off the bat, we dropped it from the $235,000 range down to the $220,000 range. So we started looking at a $220,000 range. What kind of Rolls-Royce Wraith can we get? We saw cars with about 15,000 miles that weren't very popular colors, just kind of weird color combinations. The only thing good he had going for him is the car was black and silver. But it had 50,000 miles. And the worst thing is he had no maintenance records. All the maintenance was done at this rental cars facility. So that hit him dramatically. So now he's back down to maybe the 200,000 to 195 range. And so he sat on it for about 4 months. People were offering him 175, 185. He finally let it go for $185,000. So he actually lost a bunch of money. So it's extremely easy to lose a lot of money if you don't know these features and options. A next one is the 1965 Ford Mustang. What does it mean when it has a K in the VIN number? This particular difference in knowledge of knowing why you should look for this particular thing is the difference between maybe making a $50,000 profit and making maybe a $2,000 profit. I've seen lots of people get into flipping classic cars, and if you don't learn all the makes and models and all the specialty things, you lose a lot of money. So let's say you go out and somebody says they have a 1965 Shelby Fastback GT sitting in their backyard. You go there, you see it's a stick, you see it's a V8, you get excited. The guy says he wants 50K, you peel off $50,000, you give it to him, you drive away, you're like, oh my God, I can sell it as a rust bucket, make 60, 70,000 bucks, or sell it for 60, 70,000, make a quick $10,000 to $20,000. But then you get it home, and then you find out that there's no K in the VIN. It's a 6-cylinder car, automatic, that they put a used truck motor in there, and basically it's junk. It's worth maybe $10,000 to $20,000. So now you're pretty much SOL. So knowledge plays an extreme role in learning the differences between, like I said, the options and also the specifications of every VIN, what it means, and what to look for on classic cars. And the very last one is, you know, certain cars and certain models and makes no longer make parts for this. Now, I'm going to tell you one that I personally screwed up on. So about maybe 7 to 10 years ago, I bought a really screaming deal from a rapper here in Vegas, which I won't say his name because he still lives here. He was down on his luck. He had a a Bentley Continental GT sitting in his driveway for 2 years. So I was like, why is it sitting in the driveway? He's like, oh, it can't start, it runs rough. You know, it's only got 10,000 miles. So in my head, I'm thinking, wow, 10,000 miles, he probably didn't do the maintenance on it, probably had bad gas, something like that, whatever else. So I'm thinking in my head, I'm going to lowball him. I'm going to offer him about maybe 60% of what the value is. So, which at that time was about $70,000. He actually took it. So we got it, brought it back to the shop. We were super excited. We're like, man, we're going to clean this up, flip it, take it to the auction, make a bunch of money. So we couldn't figure out what the miss was coming from, find out that it had a blown head gasket. So we had to actually tear apart the motor. We got the head gasket, took it down to Bentley. We're like, hey, I need a head gasket for a Bentley Continental GT, a head gasket kit. Come to find out, Bentley does not sell you a head gasket kit. You cannot buy a head gasket kit from anywhere in the United States or overseas. I even called people in the factory begging them to sneak out a gasket for me, but he says they're all stamped and serial number, which each motor that they hand build. So I was freaking out. So thank God, I've been in the automotive industry for a long time. I remembered a customer that, I don't know if you guys ever seen a 1936 Accord. If you want to Google it, it's a very cool car. We had to have custom head gaskets made. So I called up the gentleman. He lives in Los Angeles, California. I was like, I have a head gasket. Can I send it to you and you can replicate it? He said, no problem. I mailed the head gasket. About 10 days later, we got it back in the mail. Perfect replica. We put it on there, torqued it down, fired it up, car run and drive great. We took it to the auction, sold it. Sure enough, local Bentley dealership here in town bought it, and I still see it driving around Vegas till today. So just having the knowledge of knowing which cars you can fix, which ones you can't, and if you do get stuck in one of these pickles like we did, you actually have the knowledge to figure out how to fix it and what to do with it. Because if I couldn't have done that and I would have taken it to the auction, I probably would have lost about $20,000 to $30,000 of my money, because if an exotic car and a Highline car is not running right, you literally take a huge bath in it, which we'll go into a little bit later on the Recon end. But that is number one, knowledge. Knowledge of knowing all these items is extremely important. The second reason why you should not flip exotic cars is your network. If your network is not on point, you are already behind the 8 ball. What I mean by that is a lot of the really good deals that come up, you never see. They don't hit Craigslist, they don't hit Facebook, they don't hit eBay. It's from people like us that are constantly talking to people in the automotive industry, talking to people at car shows, talking to shops about restorations, talking to classic car collectors. Because a lot of times before we even buy the car, most of us have a buyer already for it. And we have these massive Rolodexes where, like, I literally keep logs. Every time I drive by somebody's house, I'm like, okay, at 223 Oak Street, there is a, 1975, Lincoln Town car, black, 4-door, blah, blah, blah. And I'll keep it in my Rolodex. So if anybody ever says, I'm looking for a black Lincoln Town car, automatically go to this Rolodex. So, between that, the car shows, the concourses, everything else, you learn a lot of things, and you meet a lot of people, and you build your network out. And we meet other brokers just like myself. So I've bought in cars and sold it to a broker, which sold it to another broker, which sold it to a customer, and we all made money off of one particular vehicle, which was pretty funny. But I'll give you a good example. There was a Lamborghini Countach that was here in Vegas. It was taken to a shop. The shop got filed bankruptcy, and got in a lot of trouble with the police. So I knew the owner, and I went over there and I saw the Countach torn apart. So I asked him right then and there, I was like, I'll pack it up, I'll bring it to my shop, and I'll restore it for you for a discount. He's like, nope. He goes, I'm sick of shops, I'm just gonna take it home, do it myself. Packed everything in a trailer, drove it to his house, and it sat there. I went about 2 years later, asked him again, hey, can I buy the car? He said, no, I'm not gonna sell it, I'm gonna restore it. Anyways, I think I went up there about 3 times over the next 5 years, and he told me no. So I gave up. One of my friends that was more diligent than I kept bugging him, and on the 6th year, he finally said, sure, no problem. He bought it with the trailer, in the trailer, didn't do anything, just took pictures, cataloged a few things, made $60,000 in a sale right after that. Posted up online, somebody came, picked it up, and it was gone. In parts, didn't do anything. So your network is extremely important, especially when you go to sell these cars, because even if you got a smoking deal and you stole let's say a 365, or excuse me, a Ferrari 360 challenge car, and it's a manual, and you're like, hey, I got this really cool car, it's a beautiful car, it's got low miles, and it's a stick, and it's the most desirable car, and you post it up for sale, just because you're not a, I guess, quote unquote car person, or you're not in the industry, a lot of people frown on trying to buy cars from somebody that's flipping cars out of their house. I know that sounds funny, but that's just the way some of these very discerning buyers are. These people have a lot of money, they have very particular taste, so now you're going against people that have these massive marble showrooms, or that are known a little bit more in the industry, or have some more credibility, because a lot of these people get scared, because if you don't take care of an exotic car, the depreciation is massive. If you don't track the lineage, it's very, you can lose a lot of money as well as that. And I've seen cars where, even though it's a stick, it could have been one of the automatics converted to a stick. So that hits the value extremely hard as well, but they're not going to trust your input, because they know that you don't know what to look for. So this network is extremely hard to get over. So it's very important that you have a solid network before you even start this as well. Okay, the third reason why not to get into exotic cars and flip them is recon and restoration. This one is my personal favorite. I've watched more people lose their ass in this particular area than anything else. So pretty much, like I said, the knowledge lets you know what to get and how to get it. But after you spend a large chunk of money buying these cars, a lot of these cars are going to need recon. So I'll give you a great example. I had a friend of mine purchase a Murcielago E-Gear. It was clean, good shape, but the E-Gear is not very popular, has a lot of issues, the clutch really sucks. So most people will not buy them unless the clutch service was done. So my friend thought he'd make a quick 20K buying this particular car and selling it to a friend. Well, he didn't realize that the clutch was already due for service, and a lot of these, like I said, these discerning buyers are very critical, and they say, well, where's the service records? I know at 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 miles, this thing needs a new clutch every 10,000 miles. In the meantime, this thing's running around with a factory clutch for, I think, 15 or 20,000 miles, which is rare because usually they burn out by then. And so, first thing the customer wanted to do before he bought it was, you got to put a new clutch in it. And now he's got to spend about $10,000 of his own money to put a new clutch in there and hopefully get it done right, and there's nothing else, no other issues, before he can actually make any profit. And by the time he does that, he's probably going to make $5,000 to $8,000 profit, which if you tie up $150,000 or $200,000 of your money to make $8,000, it's not a really sound investment. Also, you need to realize that even though you spend an extreme amount of money purchasing one of these Highline or exotic cars, like I said, the recon will literally eat you alive. A lot of these particular cars, the parts is insane. I remember the cheapest windshield I got for Maserati, I think, was $2,200, and it had to be mailed from Italy. So even if you buy a Maserati Gran Turismo for really cheap, you can get them at the auction for 20 to 30K, but you got to spend $2,200 to $2,700 for a cracked windshield. That's really hard to take in. Another funny one is a transmission on a Bentley Continental GT. You can rebuild them now, but back in the day you couldn't, so you had to get a used one. You're looking at probably 20, 30K for one of those. If you buy a Ferrari with a rod knock, you're looking at about 30 to 40K for a used motor if you could find one and if you could find a qualified tech to put it in there. And if you get into restorations with classic cars, you're talking about massive, massive money pits. You know, I've seen people go out and buy these classic cars, these barn finds, overpay on them, and then think to themselves, well, I'm going to fix it up and I'm going to sell it at Mecum Auto Auction or Barrett Jackson. I'm going to make a bunch of money. And the recon and restoration just eats you up, takes tons of time, tons of money, and it's a lot of carrying costs, and you lose a lot of money extremely quickly. So you need to be very, very careful, because even with regular car flipping, recon and restoration is extremely critical to your profit margins. But when it comes to exotic cars, it's even more, because you're gonna have to deal with more meticulous buyers. You're gonna have to deal with more people that wanna see actual records of service and stuff like that. And it has to be done to a certain standard, because you can't go to Mako and paint a bumper on a 430 Ferrari and expect it to just go through. They're gonna be complaining, they're gonna bitch about it. You know, I've seen people actually take Huracan seats that are worn and faded and buy like these cheap Chinese covers they make for them. I don't know if you guys seen them online. Awful. These particular type of cars, anything that's high end, you need to make sure that you buy the best materials, the best stuff, make it look the part. Because when you cheap out on exotic car, because I've seen some really janky cars, like there was a Ferrari 4, I think it was a 488 Spider, where the quarter panel was smashed. I seen it at Copart. Somebody bought it, and instead of fixing it, they just fiberglassed over everything, kind of molded it the right way. But the problem is they didn't put enough primer on it, and they didn't sand it, they didn't give enough time to shrink and air out. So after they painted it red and it sat there in the Vegas sun, you could see all the sand marks, and you could start to see all the fiberglass ripples all the way down the side of the panel. It was absolutely awful, but they still sold it, because during this particular time, nobody can go to the auctions, and so they basically sold it online. You had to view it through a black and white camera. I was fortunate enough to see it in person, and I just laughed. But those small things can cost you a lot of money if you don't do it right. That guy, whoever did that, was extremely lucky, because most buyers that are buying these type of cars are going to look at that crappy work and say there's no way they're going to pay $200,000 for something that looks like junk. So recon, like I said, is a huge money pit. Okay, reason number 4 on why not to flip exotic cars is sales and finance. To sell these cars, it's extremely hard. It takes sometimes weeks, months, even a year, because these type of buyers are not around. You're working with a much smaller demographic, and they're looking for very particular type of things. So it's very, very hard. So a lot of these buyers want to go to a place where they feel comfortable, a big fancy dealership with marble floors. They don't want to talk to you sitting in your apartment selling a $200,000 Lamborghini Huracan, you know. So even if you get a smoking deal, let's say you buy a 2017 Lamborghini Huracan for $200K, and they're all going for $225 to $250. So you got yours up for $225. You're the cheapest one. You're going to sell it. You're going to make a bunch of money, whatever. Once you put it up there, people are going to call you, but financing these cars is even harder than selling them. There's very few banks that will do a person-to-person loan for that particular type of cars. A lot of it is dealer financed only. So now, unless they have maybe Navy Fed or Penn Fed where they can go get a loan and go buy it from a regular person, the financing plays a huge part in selling one of these exotic cars. You know, regular people can't go to their credit union and be like, wow, I found a used Lamborghini for $225,000. Can you give me a loan? They're gonna say, hell no. You know, they're gonna go to all these other big banks, and they don't do those type of loans, especially if the car's a 2017. They think it's technically old. They want you to buy a 2019, 20, 21. They don't want you to buy a 2017 Lamborghini, even though it's a beautiful car and it's $225,000. On top of that, there's more options when it comes to them. And a lot of people feel more comfortable when they buy from a franchise or a large dealership like that, because a lot of these rich, discerning buyers, you know, want to feel secure in their purchase. When they buy from a dealership, at least they have some sort of recourse. They know the car's serviced, they know the car's lineage is correct, they have to disclose these types of things. When you buy from person to person, there's none of that. So they would much rather buy from a regular dealership or a franchise store and pay a few $1,000s more, knowing that they got the correct car for the right price and it's been serviced and everything is on the up and up. Where when you buy person to person, you have no idea. Once you just imagine giving somebody a $225,000 check, getting a title that says clear, and then registering it and finding out it's salvaged later. You would lose your mind, and I've seen that happen before. So, you know, you can go back and you can sue the dealer and you can get your money back, and by law they have to replace it. When it's person to person, there's no laws, it's as is, how is. So selling these cars is actually extremely hard. So remember that. If you don't have a fancy showroom floor and you don't have an amazing finance department to push these people to buy these cars, you're already fighting an uphill battle. Okay guys, the fifth and final reason why you should not flip exotic cars is capital. This particular type of business is extremely capital intensive. You're gonna need a lot of money to buy the cars. But not only do you need a lot of money to buy the cars, you're gonna need even more money to recon the cars. And after you recon the cars, then you're gonna have marketing costs. It's gonna cost you a lot of money to put these cars out there, because if you don't have a fancy dealership to send these customers to, how are they gonna know about your car? So you're gonna spend thousands of dollars on marketing. And then on top of that, you're gonna have what's called carrying costs. You're gonna have stuff break. If you're keeping 1 or 2 months, that money, if it's your cash, great. But if it's, let's say, a floor plan, an investor's money, something like that, there's gonna be a lot of carrying costs and a lot of things that's gonna cost you a lot of money. So the reason I save the capital for last is not really to discourage people, but to let people know that this is probably the smallest thing when it comes to starting this, because you'll lose more money without the knowledge and the expertise in the beginning. But the capital is extremely important, because there's nothing worse than being forced to sell a car and not make as much profit as you can, whether to wait out and hold. If you see some of these high-end, these exotic car dealerships, you'll see cars there for 6 months, sometimes a year, and you'll call and be like, yeah, man, I seen it sitting on your lot, that Mercedes SLR McLaren. I know you want 275, I'll give you 225 cash right now. And what do they tell you? No, no thank you, we're good. Because they know that if they wait, the right buyer at the right price at the right time will pay for it. They can wait because they got millions of dollars in the bank. You cannot. So just remember that the capital it costs to buy these cars, to recon these cars, which sometimes is even more insane than actually buying them. I've seen more people spend money in reconning and restoring classic and exotic cars compared to actually buying them than the marketing costs of through the roof. I've seen people pay, what's the most? I think the biggest one I saw was about a $30,000 bill from Barrett Jackson. They charged them to clean the cars, wash the cars, market the cars, and then when they sold them, they charged them the sales fee. So a lot of that stuff you guys don't get to see, but we see it on the back end, and that's a lot of money. So if you have a really tight budget and somebody just comes and whacks $30,000 out of it, that's gonna really hurt. So keep that in mind. And then, like I said, the carrying cost. What is the money costing you to keep that car sitting on your lot? Is it, maybe you could have used that money to buy other investments, real estate, other cars? Could you bought, instead of buying this $100,000 classic Porsche, can you bought 2 newer Land Rovers and sold those for quicker money than saving your money on this classic car? So yes, flipping exotic cars is a lot of fun, and yes, it's a lot of money, but it is very capital intensive, it's very time intensive, and it is extremely knowledge driven. So, you know, like I said, if you want to go for it, please do. You know, I'm actually going to make a class on how to do exotic cars. We're going to go to the auction, show you guys how to buy some. But I really recommend you don't do this unless you've been in the industry for a few years, because like I said, it is extremely easy to lose a lot of money. But I want to thank you guys so much again for watching this video. We are actually very close to 7,000 subscribers. Probably by the time I post this video, we're going to hit it. So we've gotten 2,000 subscribers over the last month, which is amazing. We're on pace actually to hit 10,000 before the end of the year. If we do that, that's super exciting. I'm going to make some big announcements. But once again, if you haven't subscribed to us, please do. If you haven't followed us on Instagram, make sure you do it at automotive.life. Make sure you smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It truly means a lot. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.